Hello students, hope you all are doing well at home and safe at home. So in this video, I thought we'll complete the portions that we have left out in the marketing analytics course. A short recap of whatever we have seen so far. I would like to give you a very short recap. So we have learned a lot of tools. So as I have told you in the very beginning of the class, do not look at the course with respect to the tools, but rather learn it from the analytics perspective. So, though we have learned a lot of tools, how you have to look at it from the analytics perspective is actually how the marketing strategies can effectively be implemented uh, with the help of a large amount of data that we have in our hand, and then accordingly we implement the tool, make appropriate decision out of the same. So, for which we have learned regression analysis mainly. So under regression analysis, we have learned a lot of different types and methods of regression analysis, right from correlation, simple regression, and then multiple regression. And in addition to that, we also learned the discriminant analysis and the discrete analysis and conjoint analysis as well. So yes, we have learned all these tools. And when we talk about the application of all these tools, you know, it helps us in predicting the price of a product, because accordingly we can forecast what is the demand that we have for our product or for the company. Through the help of the sales data that we had in our hand, we have the ability of forecasting the data through the regression analysis. In addition, we also learned we can assess what the consumers or the customers really want from the company through the combination of attributes that we had in our hand. What would be the right combination that would be suitable for the consumers? So we would be able to decide on the same using the conjoint analysis. Also, what would be the choice of decision made by the customers, whether they would buy or not buy the product. So this helped us um, in learning the logistic regression, binary logistic regression, we said, because we had only two options when we try to measure the dependent variable. So similarly, when we have more than two variables, like if the consumer would buy, not buy, and stay neutral. So if he is falling into more than two groups, then we have the empowerment of using the discriminant analysis as a tool to understand the customer analytics. What the customers really do want out of the product. So either in terms of the resource allocation, or in terms of forecasting, or in terms of predicting your sales, or in terms of understanding what your customers want out of your company, what would be the preference for the customers to decide upon a product or the buying decision. So all these we have learned so far. So now, as you could rightly see here, the cluster analysis, we are moving to, we have been left with two topics, I would say. So one is the cluster analysis as a tool, and also the ANOVA that we'll be looking in the further classes. So we'll see a small brief about what a cluster analysis is, when it will be used, and what is the implication of this tool as such, and then we'll also see a hands-on session on the same. So in this particular video, I'll just quickly take you through a brief short note on the cluster analysis. Then we'll move in detail into the hands-on session on the cluster analysis. So yes, cluster analysis, for some of you it could be a new term, or you must have heard of it. Definitely you have heard of it, and you have also learnt it as a concept in your marketing analysis and also in your other courses, marketing courses. Now I'll tell you what this cluster analysis as such means. Now just try to look closer into the tool as a cluster analysis. So here you are analyzing the clusters. Now these clusters are, from the very name or from the literal meaning, you should be able to understand that these clusters are the closely associated groups. So as a marketer or as an analyst, I'm basically interested to analyze these clusters and what is the basic association behind these clusters. This is what I'm interested to know. So having given us very small clarity on the topic, so this cluster analysis, I'll tell you first of all where it is used and how it is being used. So you must have learned a concept called a segmentation, a very classic old concept of marketing segmentation. You all know what is a segmentation as a strategy. So segmentation, targeting, positioning. This is how it follows. So basically segmentation, you very crudely you say you are segregating the customers into various groups or clusters. And what is the nature of these clusters or the groups? They're homogeneous in nature. Now what do we really mean by homogeneous in nature? They have some similarity in the attributes. They have some similarity in their characteristics. So these clusters are similar in certain characteristics. Now, what is the purpose of classifying them or grouping them into various clusters or into various groups? How it is going to be useful for the marketer, or is it really necessary for a marketer to first of all classify them into segments or clusters or groups? Now, why should I have to classify them into various groups? Again, these are very basic concept. I'm just brushing it again so that you will be on track and also you'll be able to understand the analysis better. So, yes, getting back to segmentation as such. So, why am I classifying them into the homogeneous group? It's the first criteria that I should understand. So, if I am a company, say for example, like Coca-Cola, wherein I have one product, say it is the classic Coke that I'm trying to market. This product is positioned generally for the common mass of customers. So this is called as mass customization, wherein I don't come out with a specified product for each of the group, rather one product with a common theme, open happiness, and then I try to deliver the product to the entire mass of the customers. So this classic Coke is one single product that is marketed by the company across the world and also across India. So this is no matter it is customized. Whereas there are companies or there are products, or take the same company, for example Coke, they also have a Diet Coke version. So what is the purpose of coming out with a Diet Coke version? This Diet Coke as a product is being specifically targeted for those customers who are health conscious. So here, as a company, what I am trying to do, I am trying to group a certain set of customers who are diet conscious, who are health conscious, who want a product which is sugar free in nature. So for this reason, I target the product for those specified set of customers. So for me to first target, for me to come out and then position the product, first of all, I should understand on what basis I have to classify the customers. So this is a concept you must have learned. Segmentation is a process of segregating a group of customers based on various characteristics, and you know these characteristics would be demographic in nature, psychographic in nature, behavioral in nature, geographic in nature. Though as a concept it may sound so simple, but when it comes to the operation, it is not that easy. Why do I say that? Technically, or in the textual language, you must have learnt it classifying or segregating the customers based on some commonality, which is a demographic characteristics, for example. Is it just classifying them only based on the age? Is it just classifying them haphazardly based on the education? Is it just classifying them based on the income? Is it as simple as that? No, not exactly. Because we ourselves know that even customers who fall within the range, say teens, or who are elderly, or who are adults, even those customers do have difference in their taste and preference. We may not be sure of that all the teams have the same orientation towards the product, or same orientation towards the company, or same orientation in preferring a product or a service. So in that case, this classification, this commonality of classification is not so evident, that is so easy for a marketer or for an analyst or for a researcher to just like that classify them based on the characteristics they have studied. I cannot simply classify the customers based on the geographical location. Just like that, the northern India, so northern India would be till this, southern India would include all the four states, eastern would be this, and western would be this, and central would be this. So it is not as such easy for us to classify the customers just like we learn in the conceptual or in the textual phase. Rather, it needs more intuitive knowledge for me to classify these customers into various segments. So, having given you a small clarity on the segmentation as a concept, now slowly let's step into how this cluster analysis is helping us or enabling us to segment or classify the customers. Now, say for example, there is a life insurance company which wanted to know whether all the customers prefers a premium saving or whether it is not really important for all the other customers. Do they really want an assistance from an agent or it is not really important? So it just wanted to understand how far it is important and how far it is not important to its customers. So a life insurance company, it has selected two attributes. As you could see in the graph, you have premium saving as one attribute. The other attribute is whether the requirement of agent is necessary when they had to process through a service. So now having had these two attributes, now I am taking it on two different scales. One is premium saving is really important for me when I buy a life insurance service. Whereas on the other extreme end, premium saving is not really important. So this is how I have measured one particular variable on an extreme continuum. Whereas the second attribute that I have taken, should assistance from the agent is always required or not necessary. So I have two different attributes and I am measuring on a 5-point scale, say for example, 1 being the least important and 5 being the most important. So now having given the rating, this is again not new to you. We have also learned this in marketing, basic marketing course, in product and brand management, and also in marketing analytics. So this is nothing but the important metrics that we have learned. So yes, when I plot it in the graph, I get a closer association, or the graph shows segment A has some closer grouping of cases. Roughly say out of 100, 49 cases or 49 customers prefer premium saving as moderately or fairly important, but they are not really bothered about the assistance from the agent. Whereas here when you see the segment B, the premium saving is not much of importance to them, whereas they really require the assistance of the agent. So roughly out of 100, 36 of the cases or 36 customers form a closer association over here, and since they are closely located here, I am bundling them all together and then I call them to the segment B. And there is a segment C here wherein I have 15 cases out of 100, wherein yes, for them premium saving is really important or fairly important. Roughly it would stay on a 4-point scale, and at the same time the assistance from the agent is also important. So here, since they are all closely associated or closely located in this particular region, I form a bundle and then I am calling them as segment C. Now, one single company, but offering one single service, a life insurance service, has to come out with 3 different varieties or versions of its service or product for it to satisfy 3 different segments. If I did not have an awareness that they do differ in terms of their preference, I would have come out with only one single service or a product for all these 3 groups, and not every single customer would have been happy, and not every single customer would have preferred buying the service from my company. For this reason, I should understand in depth, in detail about what is the real preference of each set of my customers, so that I can come out with 3 different versions of the product. So for those customers who say agent is not really important, I can go in for, say, online assistance. If at all if they require, I can give them a toll-free number, and then get their queries clarified. They do not really require a person, an agent to sit with and clarify their query. Whereas I should concentrate more on the premium saving. But here, there are customers wherein premium saving is not a real concern for them, but they really require the advice from an agent. So in that case, I should dedicatedly appoint an agent who is profound and well known of the products that I deal with, and give him or her a proper assistance in choosing the service or managing the portfolio of service. There are also customers wherein who require these two. Premium saving is important, and at the same time agent presence is also, agent assistance is also important. So in that case, I should be concentrating on these two attributes. So now you must have got a clarity. Now, when I segment them into groups and understand what their preference and what important is to them, only then I can accordingly customize, or I can accordingly come out with extensions of lines or extensions of product lines for them, so that they can aptly choose the product that they would prefer. Now, the next question comes. Yes, you have to segment, but then how do I segment them into various groups? So here comes the role of cluster analysis. Now, how do you segment them? So as cluster analysis being a tool, it has got some 5 steps. Now quickly have a read through of these 5 steps. First, yes, you formulate the problem. What is the problem over here? Basically, you want to group the customers into various groups or category based on some homogeneity, some commonality, and then you have to select the variables. What do you mean by the variables over here? Just to recall the previous example. So here in this case, what are the variables? 2 variables we have. One is premium savings, the other one is the requirement of agent. So we had 2 variables, and these 2 variables were measured on the least to most scale. So after you formulate the problem, you have to basically select your variables that forms the basis for clustering. So it is not necessary that you should only have 2 variables. You can have more than 2 variables as well. So with more than 2 variables, you can form the clusters. So this here we had only 2 variables, and therefore you just had a 2D graph wherein it was very easy for us to explain the segment. What if you had one more attribute, and then it would be a 3D, wherein this plane would be on an x-axis, y-axis, and an z-axis, wherein it would form a 3D graph. So as the variables keeps on increasing, obviously the complexity of the cluster analysis would also become little tough. So of course, yes, we do have statistical tools that helps us in easing the process, but for you to understand, the more number of variables you have in your hand, the process of clustering also becomes more complex. Now the second one is compute the distance between the customers along the selected variable. This is very, very important point. The entire cluster analysis as a concept or as a tool works on this particular assumption, or works on this particular the statistical base, I would say. Now what do you mean by that? See, I have grouped them into segment A. On what basis did I group them into segment A, or on what basis I bundled them together to form segment A? Out of 100, 49 of the customers were closely located in this particular region, which means the distance between each of the 49 cases were so closely associated that helped me in forming a cluster A or a segment B, segment A. Whereas the distance between segment A and segment C are really farthest, and therefore it has formed into 2 different clusters. Now, if all these 15 cases have been closely located over here, they would have naturally formed a cluster A only and not C. Now, just because these 15 cases were located farthest from A and also from B, they have been grouped under a new segment which is called as C. So this clustering is basically done by the mechanism of calculation of the distance. What is the distance? These distance are the distance within the clusters and between the clusters, we say. So within the clusters, they should be closest in such a way that they are closely bundled as one segment. When the distance between the clusters or the distance between the cases, when they are farthest, they are grouped into two different segments. So this is the basic logic. So this entire cluster analysis as a tool works behind this distancing mechanism. The third one is then you do a clustering procedure based on the distance procedure, distance measure that we have adopted, and then we'll decide on the number of clusters. So here we had 3 clusters only. Not necessary that we should always have 3 clusters. You can have 2 clusters, 3 clusters, 4, 5, and any number of clusters can be formed. But then I would also like you to recall the basic concept of segments, segmentation. So a segment has to be homogeneous. What are the characteristics of segments? The segment has to be homogeneous in nature. Secondly, the segment should respond to your activities. Activities, I mean your marketing activities. If you're coming out with an advertisement, if you're coming out with a promotion, if you're coming out with a sales activity, your segment should respond. Your customers should respond. In what way they will respond? They will either buy your product, not necessarily always they have to buy the product. They just see your product and then they remember your brand. That is enough. That is a way of responding. So either ways they should respond. If they are not responding, if they are staying muted, then that doesn't mean that these customers are responsive to your marketing activities. So secondly, they should respond. Thirdly, they should be profitable. Profitable in the sense the segment that you have chosen, the product that you have launched, the activities that you are doing, it should positively respond and it should give you some revenue. So only then you can call that segment to be profitable. Otherwise, there is no point in choosing the segment as one and then investing so much on your marketing strategies and finally not investing anything is not going to be a real good idea. So your segment should be profitable. Fourth, importantly, the segment should be sizable. What do you mean by a sizable segment? The segment should have enough number of consumers or customers or cases so that launching one single product or mini product to a particular segment is really worth in coming out with. If a segment hardly has say some 5 or 6 cases or 5 or 6 customers in this particular segment, let's forget this number 49%, let's say 5%, or imagine there is one particular segment over here, segment D, wherein you have 5% of the total customers. Then for just a meager of 5 cases or 5 customers out of 100, there is no point in coming out with a new product or a service. It's not really going to be profitable. It's not going to be a real sizable segment that will yield you the appropriate revenue that you have invested. So these are the basic characteristics of a segment or a cluster. So I say all these characteristics because it is not just the number of clusters that you get out of cluster analysis, all that can be created as a segment and then you can operate it with a marketing strategy. Here comes the important role of the manager. So a tool will give you only results from an analysis, but it is the human power, it is the intuitive power of the manager or the researcher wherein you have to decide on which would be the apt cluster. At the same time, you should also look into the competitors who are closely associated with serving each of the customers. For example, say segment A and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 competitors over here who are already catering to segment A, and you wanted to enter as a new entrant as a 6th player, I don't think you will be able to grab a sizable market share. But whereas, say for an argument's sake, you have segment B and you hardly have 2 players in the market serving segment B, then that would be really a wise idea for you to pitch in over here and then come out with a new product or a service so that not much competitors around, and at the same time you can also license a good market share out of this 36%. So it is not just the number of clusters that you get is going to decide on the number of segments. Rather, it is your intuitive decision on various characteristics or the criteria that underlines the segmentation process as such, and then decide on which would be the right segment that you're going to pitch in. And map and interpret the clusters, draw conclusions, illustrative techniques like perceptual maps. Yes, this is what we have seen. So, and then this comes this. So each and every step that is imbibed in the cluster analysis is very, very important. Though the selection of the variable is dependent on the manager's decision, you have to select which are the variables that are really important for you to decide on designing the product. So if it is a bike, what would be the two important variable criteria, attribute or a characteristic that is really important for a customer to choose a bike as a brand? So yes, having decided this distance between the customers is being done by the software itself. You need not really work so much on this particular second step. You have to just decide which type of distancing measure you are going to select. That we'll see in the further slide. Whereas the third, the fourth, and the fifth, all these other steps, the intuitive decision of the managers is very, very important for you to rightly decide on which would be the profitable segment that you can really choose. Now, I hope you're all on track and then you're following. So with that assumption, let me move on to the further slide. Now, distance measure. We said just to go back to the previous slide and then have a look at. So after you select your variable, you have to basically compute the distance between the customers. How do I compute the distance between the customers? Based on the distance measure that you choose. Now, there are two different types of distance measure that is being generally adopted by the cluster analysis. So K-means clustering algorithm must be a new term to you, but whereas Euclidean distance is not a new term to you, I believe. If you could recall our product and brand management course, wherein we had one tool called as similarity analysis and dissimilarity analysis. So similarity and dissimilarity analysis, I believe I had told you similarity analysis or similarity index is being calculated based on the Euclidean distance. If you couldn't recall what Euclidean distance is, we have one more slide over here that really explains us what Euclidean distance is. Now, before we step into what Euclidean distance is all about, now just have a look at this slide wherein you have a small data. The first column has the individual number. You can call it to be the individual name. You can call it to be the customer name. So we have Joe, Sam, and Sarah over here, and this is an important score. So important score has been measured on two parametrics or on two variables. One is the premium saving. The second one is the neighborhood agent. So just like the perceptual map example, the same thing. So does they really want the premium saving? Do they really consider premium saving is important? Here they have measured it on a 10-point scale. So if you had, or you can say if it's 7-point scale also. So if you had a higher rating, probably you need the presence of, or you consider the variable to be important. So here Joe has given 4 out of say 10 or 7 for the premium saving, whereas he has given 7 for the requirement of an agent. So similarly, Sam has also given 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So this is how you get the score for each of the customers. Now, how do you get this? You have questionnaire, you give it on a survey basis and then get the data collected, and then this is what you have. So for simplicity, we have just taken 3 cases for this example. Now, how do I calculate this Euclidean distance? Euclidean distance, I hope you remember, it is the distance between 2 points. So these 2 points are basically plotted on a graph. Now, how do you plot it on a graph? Say here there's a graph. Now, how do you plot this point for Joe? How do you plot 4, 7? 4, 7, where would it come? 4 on premium savings and 7 on the neighborhood agent. Now, 4 on a premium saving, let's say this is on a 10-point scale, probably it would be here, and 7 on a agent. So it is really important. He would have really fallen on the segment B because he has chosen a moderate score for premium savings and really important score for presence of an agent. So he must have fallen on segment B. So here the point that Joe has gained to fall in the segment B is actually 4, 7. 4 on this, 7, 4. First you plot the x-axis and then you give the y-axis. Therefore, so in this case 7, 4. So 7, 4 would be the intercept here. So whereas, say for example, Sam would have got 4, 3. 4, 3, where would I have plotted? So this is 4 is for neighborhood and 3 is for premium space. Okay. 4 would be somewhere over here. 3 is somewhere over here. So somewhere over here, Sam would have fallen. So this is 4, 3 would be the intercept. Now, you are planning to calculate the distance between Joe and Sam. So Sam has 4, 3 as the intercept point, and Joe, I think I'm reading out the name correctly. So Joe has intercept score of 7, 4. So basically, you are calculating the distance between 2 points. So the distance between 2 points, how do you calculate? It's basically the straight line formula. So this is equilibrium distance is calculated by, I still remember, we saw this in the similarity index. We also calculated this. So it is the square root of x, Joe's first rating, minus x, Sam's first rating. What does that mean? So first rating was 4 and 3. So 4 minus 3, the whole square, plus x, Joe's second score, and x, the Sam's second score, up to nth variable. So here in this case, we have only 2 variables. So 4 minus 3, the whole square, plus 7 minus 4, the whole square, the entire square root would have 3.2. So the equilibrium distance between Joe and Sam is 3.2. So x, Joe 1, the value of Joe along the variable 1, x, Sam 1 is the value of Sam along the variable 1. So I calculate the distance between Sam and Joe through the equilibrium distance formula, which is a straight line formula, the square root of the first value plus the second value. The square root, within the square root, you subtract the corresponding intercept score and square it, add it, and then the second variable score, and this gives you the value of the equilibrium distance between 3.2. So if it is 3.2, what does that mean? Sam and Joe has a distance of 3.2. So what is the basic interpretation behind this value? The higher the distance, higher the number, it means Joe and Sam are farly located between each other. So obviously they would have fallen into 2 different clusters. If the number is really small, then they would have been in the same segment. They would have been under the same cluster. So probably say if it is 0.9, if it is 0.7, or it is 1.1, so they are pretty closer to each other, and therefore they are closely located, and they would have been bundled and formed a one single cluster. But if they are farly located, the higher would be the number. So this is the pairwise distance matrix. So along the diagonal we have 0 because we are measuring the same person or the same case. So the equilibrium distance between Sam to Joe is 3.2. So similarly, if you calculate for Joe and Sarah, it is 4.1, and for Sam and Sarah, it is 2.2. So this equilibrium distance helps us in forming the cluster. So if you had chosen equilibrium distance as the distance measure for running the cluster analysis, this is how the calculation will be done. So closer the location, probably 2.2 is lesser as compared to 4.1, we don't know. 2.2 would have been in the same cluster as compared to 4.1, or a score of say 7.1 or 8.7 is literally higher than that of the other ones. So probably we could have had 8.1 in two different clusters and 2.2 in the same cluster. So this is how the operation behind the Euclidean distance actually works. I hope you're on track. So next we also have a k-means clustering algorithm. Now we'll see what is the basic a statistical operation behind k-means clustering algorithm when you choose this to be the distance measure for calculating the clusters. Now, as I told, the Euclidean distance is being calculated based on the distance between the 2 points. Now, this graph as such may look complex, but it is not that way. Though the calculative part is a bit complex and software takes care of it, but the understanding is not really complex. I'll just try to read things from the slide, then you should be able to understand. First of all, what you have to do is choose the number of clusters. Say for example, k is equal to 2. So here in this case, I have determined or I have instructed the software to give me 2 clusters. I want 2 clusters out of the entire data. So now first I have assigned that the system should create 2 clusters. So what it does is, it tries to create 2 clusters. How does it create? Based on some similarity center. First, initially, it just haphazardly groups them into 2 clusters. Just like that, it forms 2 clusters. Then what does it do? It works on calculating a centroid. What does a centroid mean? Centroid is basically calculating the mean. When you calculate the mean score of these case points, then it is called as a centroid. Now, based on haphazardous or the initial cluster, later the software computes the cluster mean. Then after you calculate the cluster mean, what does the system do? It rearranges the points. So initially it just had it distributed on the graph. We have just given or instructed the software to give 2 clusters. So just like that, randomly it draws 2 clusters, and for the 2 random clusters, it calculates the mean, which is statistically also called as centroid. After you calculate the centroid, it rearranges the cluster points based on the centroid or the mean score, and then it updates the cluster mean and gives you 2 clear-cut clusters. Now, when you adopt k-means clustering, you instruct or you decide on the number of clusters that you really require. I can give 3, k is equal to 3. I can also give k is equal to 5, 7, 8, 10, based on the number that I would like to. But at the same time, the more clusters that you wanted to have, the clarity in defining the segment will also not be very clear. It will be very dilute. So you should always aim for a sizable segment. So anything greater than 2 is ideal. At the same time, not greater than 5. So if you have more than 5 clusters, or if you instruct the system to clear more than 5 clusters, it will create a lot of small nodes wherein not many of the cases would fall on all of these segments. For the sake of creating a segment, it would have created some say 7 clusters, 8 clusters, but they would not be a sizable segment. So you should be very careful and ideal enough when you determine this number of clusters. Now, how do you really work on, or how should I have to determine this number? It is again based on the conceptual understanding. So if you and type of the product that you deal with, and number of product lines that you wanted to come out with, and what would be the number of segments that you wanted to have. Say for example, if it is a shampoo category, we have a lots of versions. So we have long and black, we have one for curly hair, we have one for anti-dandruff, we have one for chemical treated hair. So like this, under a shampoo category, we have almost 7 to 8 or 10 versions of varieties of shampoos. So similarly, in terms of noodles, if you take, or soup for that matter, you have a lot of variants. So in all these variety seeking products, you tend to have a lot of variety or a lot of flavor in the product. So in that case, you deal with a lot of segments. But whereas there are products wherein you don't really work on too many variants or too many segments. Say, for example, the durable goods. If it is a washing machine or a fridge, in that particular range, you hardly have two variants. One is maybe a top load or a front load in case of a washing machine. So do you really want a turbo drum or a non-turbo drum? You want a semi-automatic or a complete automatic machine? So here you hardly have two clusters, a defined two clusters. So it basically depends on the type of product or a service that you deal with. If you're really into a hotel industry, you can go in for 3 or 4 clusters, one for a premium class, one for a business class, one for an economy class, a suite room, etc. So based on those, you can really go in for 3 or 4 clusters. That would be really ideal. So it basically depends upon the type of the product that you deal with, the kind of the customers you deal with, and what is the history of your brand, and how many products that you wanted to really venture into. So all these factors do have a great impact on deciding this number. So you should always, why I detail in all these is, so running an analysis is not just like that, giving some random numbers and then working on the data set. Rather, it needs a lot of intuitive decision making, and only then you will be able to give a proper meaning to the number that you get out of the analysis. Otherwise, these numbers, garbage in would be a garbage out. So you have to really think in detail when you really looking for these analysis. So I do repeat this k-means clustering process once again. So first of all, you haphazardly group them into 2 different groups, and then you calculate the mean or the centroid value, and you rearrange the points and then come out with a final cluster. So when you choose this k-means clustering in the analysis, you will see 2 results that you get. One is the initial clustering process and a final clustering process. So what is this initial and final clustering process? Is basically an initial clustering process happens out of this 1 and 2 steps, and the final clustering process happens after you calculate the centroid and then rearrange your cluster points, and then you get a final segments from the software. So yes, now this is, now as I had been telling you, what would be the ideal number of clusters that I would really require, because I am the one who is deciding on the number of clusters that I have to decide. So in that case, what is the real ideal number? So this real ideal number is being again calculated by elbow plot, we say. So this elbow plot is being calculated by what would be the ideal number versus what is the within cluster and between cluster variance. So if the variance keeps on dripping down, then your cluster will also keep on going up, which means you have 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 clusters, but the variance between the clusters is not pretty obvious. Whereas here the variance is pretty high, the cluster size is also sizable. So you should look into the drop in the plot. So as if you see a major drop in the plot, which means a major drop in the variance that the cases, within cases and between cases that you see, then see here, I would suggest there's no much difference between the variance with respect to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all these almost lie in the same straight line. Whereas if I had to take 2 clusters, the variance is really high. What does that mean? What do you mean by a variance? The difference between 2 clusters is really huge enough. So when these 2 segments are really different enough for me to come out with 2 different products, or 2 different pricing strategy, or 2 different sales strategy, so that these would respond in 2 different manner. If I try to break them into 3, then the variance really drops down from 250 to 100. But then I get 3 different segments. So this elbow point is an ideal plot that helps us to decide which would be the ideal number of clusters that we can work on. So out of these 2 measures that I have, which one should I choose? Should I go for Euclidean distance or k-mean? So this Euclidean distance, when you look into the understanding of the Euclidean distance, we only had two attributes. And when you calculate the distance between two attributes, it's not going to be a big trouble. But whereas when you have more than two attributes, how do you calculate the distance between x to y to z? Or between, if you have four different planes, how do you calculate it on a 4D graph? So that makes the process really complex. Though this is being also being done by the software, so as you keep on adding the dimension, the process also is tedious. So in that case, the most commonly used algorithm is the k-means clustering process for calculating the distance. So here when we run the cluster analysis, we would also be choosing on the k-means clustering algorithm. So this you remember in your mind when we run the hands-on session. Now say for example, this is the result that you get out of the cluster analysis. So you have a mean and a range value here. Now cluster analysis has given you three clusters, cluster A, cluster B and cluster C. And this has been done based on the two demographic dimension, one is age and income. So based on age and income of the respondent, it has given us three different clusters. Now the very first cluster, the mean age of the respondent is 21. Whereas when you look into the second cluster or the segment, it is 45 and the third one is 39. And when you look into the income in dollars, it is $15,000, $120,000 and $40,000. Now this has, you have got the mean age to be 21. Now what is the range of age group that they had fallen under the segment A? So this is between 16 to 25. They had fallen under this group, and they have an income of 0 to 25,000, right from no income to $25,000 income. This is what is the range they have, and this is the mean income. So similarly, customers or respondents around 45, which means between 33 to 55, they have an income of $75,000 to $15,000. Whereas the third segment, 39, around 39 to 54, so they have a mean income of 40,000 and their range is between 24,000 to 60,000. Now this is the segment, this is the number that you have got out of the analysis. Now let's veer our management lens and then see still in detail into the real meaning of this segmentation process. Now what does it actually convey? A person, a respondent who is of really young age has really got a lower income. Yes, comparatively a lower income. Whereas a person who's in the second or the third segment, which is called as segment C, who is elder than the first segment, segment A, but not pretty old, obviously he would have had greater experience as compared to this particular age, 16 to 25, but at the same time not much as experienced as the 33 to 55. So he must have had an income of $24,000 to $60,000. So a mean age group of 45, but when you look into this age range, this is between 33 to 55, which means most of them had been around 45. Why around 45? And the range seemed to be not pretty different as compared to the third one, but still they have a higher income as compared to the third group. Probably they would have been the ideal age. This would have been too young, or this would have been the age wherein it would have suited only the white collars. They would have been GMs, general managers, CEOs of the company. Therefore, they would have got a higher income. So you have to really veer the intuitive lens for us to understand why this has been grouped under segment 1. Age and income, what is the relationship? This range and this range, what is the relationship? Why it has been grouped under 1? So if I am trying to create an insurance policy, so what would be the right composition of the service that would be really ideal for this service? So do they have a higher income tax to be paid? Are they really bothered about their life insurance? Are they really bothered about their assets? So what would be the right service that would be ideal for this particular group? Though the age difference is not pretty much high, still their income level is highly different. So what is the real reason? So what would be the ideal product that I can look in for? So this is how you have to look in intuitively into it. What is the real reason for them to be grouped into three categories based on these two different variables or the attributes, and then you have to look into what is the brand, what is the product that you are into, and what would be the right composition of the product that would be ideal for these three different groups. You should also be very, very concerned. So all the three products that you try to offer to each of these segments should be truly different enough for them to respond in a different way. If all these three products do not have much of the variation between themselves, then it is not going to receive a proper response from these three different customers. So here you could have a premium or a flagship brand or a product which is so suitable for a premium income group. This could be a mediocre, an average product, a budgetary product, which would be ideal for this young segment, at the same time not much to spend, whereas this could be a mid product. So this could be a medium risk product, and at the same time they are not ready to shell out too much from their pockets because they are not earning pretty high as compared to the segment B, not also really low as compared to segment A. So you should go in for designing something on a mid-range to attract this segment C. So this is how you have to really work in detail. It is not just the analysis, it is not just deciding on the number of clusters, or it is not just deciding, or it is not just getting some results out of the analysis. Rather, there is a lot of intuitive decision that is really required. So when you look into this cluster analysis as a tool, or any tool for that matter, especially in this marketing analytics course, you have this learning the tool has got 20% or 30%, I would say, whereas all the 70% is purely based on the clarity in the concept and the logic in substantiating your numbers with the concept. So that is very, very important. So with this understanding, I hope it is clear. The brief introduction about this cluster analysis is clear. So in the next video, we'll see the hands-on session on the cluster analysis. I have a data with me. I'll explain you the data, and then we'll see how this cluster analysis can be worked on SPSS as a software. Thank you.